You think being a Hogwarts ghost is chill? Like floating through walls and photobombing feasts? Nah, it is eternal embarrassment. One passed from a failed tooth-fixing spell, another got stabbed by a guy who couldn't handle rejection. In this video, let's meet the real afterlife at Hogwarts. 1. Nearly headless Nick. You probably remember him for floating into the Gryffindor common room and looking like a sad historical reenactment. But behind the ruffles and polite manners, Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington has a death story so clumsy it almost makes you feel bad for laughing. Before his ghost gig, Nick lived during the 1400s and thought he could fix people's smiles with magic. The problem is that his wand skills were optimistic. One day, he tried to straighten a lady's teeth, but instead, he gave her a full-on tusk. Especially not for a noblewoman tied to King Henry II's court. The scandal that followed landed him in prison, wand confiscated, reputation destroyed. Now here's where things go from tragic to grotesquely ridiculous. The executioner didn't sharpen the axe. It took 45 swings to not even finish the job. He passed, but only nearly headless. As most wizard ghosts do, he chose to linger at Hogwarts, afraid to cross the threshold of the unknown. Though he tried to carry on with dignity, there was a sadness about him. He threw a Death Day party that turned into a disaster when guests mocked his not-quite-headless state. The headless hunt refused to let him join, because come on, the reason is obvious. His story isn't just ghostly, it's deeply human. A man who messed up, passed badly, and never stopped being embarrassed about it. 2. Helena Ravenclaw, or the Grey Lady. She drifts through the castle like a whisper of regret. Helena Ravenclaw, once the proud daughter of the brilliant Rowena Ravenclaw, was not just a ghost. She was the key to Voldemort's undoing. Before she became the Grey Lady, Helena had lived in the shadow of her mother's intellect and admiration. She longed to be known for her own brilliance, and in a moment of rebellion, she stole her mother's diadem, a magical artifact that amplified wisdom, and fled across the sea to Albania. Her mother, broken-hearted and near the end of her days, sent a man to bring Helena home, the Bloody Baron, who had long loved her in silence. Be sure to remember this name, because we will uncover what truly happened on Baron's side next. Just know that Baron's love twisted into obsession, and when Helena refused to return, the Baron's temper overwhelmed him. In a forest cloaked with silence, he canceled her out in sorrowful rage. Moments later, overcome with guilt, he followed her into the afterlife. When they returned as spirits to Hogwarts, Helena never forgave him. Her presence became one of distance and melancholy, a whisper of what could have been. Yet it was Helena who ultimately helped Harry in his final quest. She confessed that she had told Tom Riddle about the diadem, not knowing his true nature. She watched as he turned her mother's legacy into a Horcrux. Her grief shaped her silence, her stillness, and the cold detachment that made her such an enigma. But behind the veil, Helena was the one who pointed Harry to the room of requirement, and in doing so, undid the darkness she had once allowed to take root. 3. The Bloody Baron. He is the ghost no student dares to approach, cloaked in silence and shimmering with blood that never fades. The Bloody Baron did not always wear chains or carry the weight of a tragedy. In life, he was a Slytherin, proud, noble, and deeply in love with Helena Ravenclaw. But his love was not returned. When Rowena asked him to find her daughter and bring her home, he obeyed, driven not only by duty, but longing. In the quiet woods of Albania, he found Helena. She stood her ground and refused to come back, and he, consumed by jealousy and pain, did the unthinkable. The moment he ended Helena's life, he also destroyed his own. The sharpness that struck her was soon turned against himself. When he returned to Hogwarts as a ghost, he adorned himself in chains, a symbol of the guilt he would carry for eternity. No one ever spoke of who stained his robes, but everyone felt the weight of it. Students kept their distance. Even Peeves, the chaos-loving poltergeist, obeyed the Baron's presence. He was the only one who could silence Peeves with a glance. Baron was kind of special to Peeve, but we will talk about Peeves later. Despite being from rival houses, the Baron found some semblance of understanding with nearly headless Nick. But behind the silver glimmer and floating form was a man forever trapped in a single, terrible choice, unable to forgive himself or be forgiven. 4. The Fat Friar. He floats cheerfully through the halls of Hogwarts, smiling at students, humming under his breath, always warm and welcoming. But his story, like the others, is not without sorrow. The Fat Friar was a Hufflepuff in life, taught directly by Helga Hufflepuff herself. After Hogwarts, he devoted his life to charity, healing, and faith, joining a religious order to serve those in need. But his kindness was misunderstood, and his gifts caused suspicion. The church elders could not comprehend how he cured the sick with a stick, or how rabbits mysteriously appeared during sacred rituals. In time, suspicion turned into fear, and fear into judgment. He was quietly removed from the world by those who once claimed to serve love and truth. His departure was unjust, and he knew it. He never fulfilled his dream of becoming a cardinal, and that longing kept his spirit tethered to Hogwarts. Unlike the other ghosts, he chose joy. Perhaps it was his way of healing, or simply a reflection of his heart. He believed Peeves deserved second chances, and he often acted as a peacemaker among the castle's more solemn spirits. The Fat Friar reminds everyone that sometimes kindness alone isn't enough to shield you from cruelty, but it is enough to keep your soul intact. 5. Peeves. He is chaos in the shape of a spirit. Peeves is not a ghost, not a former student, and not even technically alive, but he is undeniably real. He just is. No one knows exactly how he came to be, but the rumor goes that he arrived with the stones of the castle itself, like mischief baked into the mortar. Peeves is the wind that slams doors, the laugh in the shadows, the trickster who sends first years running with buckets on their heads. He doesn't float. He flies, zooms, cartwheels, and dive bombs. He throws chalk, topples suits of armor, and sings terrible songs at the worst moments. But under the shrieking laughter and pranks is something oddly noble. Peeves never picked a side in life because he was never truly part of it. But when Hogwarts was threatened, he knew where he stood. During Dolores Umbridge's reign of terror, Peeves became a one-spectre rebellion. He terrorized her authority, saluted Fred and George as they made their grand exit, and escalated the chaos to legendary proportions. At the Battle of Hogwarts, he fought for the castle. Peeves, the eternal prankster, became a defender. He might never have been a student or a teacher, but Hogwarts was his home, and he would protect it, loudly, obnoxiously, and without apology. 6. Moaning Myrtle. Moaning Myrtle, whose full name was Myrtle Elizabeth Warren, started attending Hogwarts around 1939 or 1940 and was sorted into Ravenclaw. Her school years were miserable. She was awkward, wore glasses, had acne, and never quite fit in. Other students, especially Olive Hornby, bullied her relentlessly. On the day she passed, she was crying inside a bathroom stall after another one of Olive's cruel jokes. That's when she heard a boy speaking a strange language. It was Parseltongue, and that boy was Tom Riddle. He was opening the Chamber of Secrets, and from it emerged the creature that would take Myrtle's life, a basilisk. She opened the door, probably ready to yell at the boy to go away, but instead, she met the basilisk's deadly gaze. That moment ended her life instantly. She became Tom Riddle's first murder, the killing that allowed him to create his very first Horcrux, the diary. Her death, accidental in his eyes but monstrous in impact, wasn't just a ghost story. It was the start of everything Voldemort would later become. Olive Hornby eventually found Myrtle, and Myrtle never forgave her. Even as a ghost, Myrtle continued to haunt Olive for years, until the Ministry had to step in. Now she floats in that bathroom, not just sad, but tangled in the origin story of the darkest wizard who ever lived. So the next time you walk through a castle corridor and feel the air go cold, remember, it might not just be the wind. It might be a girl still stuck in the bathroom where everything ended. Easy ghosts aren't here to scare you. They're here because something scared them so much, they never left. I'm sure there are a lot more ghosts at Hogwarts. The castle has been there for hundreds of years, yet, being a Hogwarts ghost does sound a lot more pleasing than wandering out there. Now here's the real question. If you were at Hogwarts, what would be the one thing that could bind you to that castle, even after you've crossed the veil? And will you befriend Myrtle?